Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another one of our Israelites gathering Shabbat studies. My name is YAH, and Brother Kased is out this week. We want to keep him lifted up in prayers. Aki said he woke up with a terrible toothache this morning. I don't know if anybody's experienced that, but the toothache and stomach ache are two of the worst pains I know I've experienced in my life. And, I've broke bones and had all kind of stuff happen. So definitely want to keep the brother lifted up in prayer. I pray that you get some relief. With that being said, again, I am Yadon Yasharal, and the title of our Shabbat study today is Yah's First Fruits. But before we get into that, tonight, starting after the Shabbat, will be the morrow after the Shabbat, which would give us the first fruits. So it will be a first fruits offering, and it is a holy day. It is not a Sabbathon, which means it's a day of rest, but it is Moedim. It is one of the appointed times, and it is one of the times that Mashiach was able to fulfill. So we're going to get into that. But before we do that, if you haven't already, download our Israelites Gathering mobile application. You can get that either for Apple on the App Store, or you can also get that on Android, and it's also entitled Israelites Gathering. Also, another new app that we have out of the ministry is called the Sisterhood Network. This is actually for the Roku channel. So if you have Roku TV, you can screenshot this right here, where we have these barcodes at the bottom for either Fire TV or Roku. Let me see if I can blow that up a little bit so you can see it a little better. If you see those links at the bottom, you can go ahead and scan that with your phone or take a picture of it so that you can go ahead and download that for your Roku or your Fire TV, and that is also free. So definitely check that out. And the Sisterhood Network is basically a biblical network for the sisters, where women are encouraged to check in and check out the biblical content that's inspired by the app. Bible studies, devotionals, all type of podcasts that are for Bible believing women, especially Israelites. So definitely check that out. Like I said, with that being said, the title of our class today is Yah's First Fruits. So we're going to get into first fruits. Many of us are coming out of unleavened bread, or maybe finishing unleavened bread. And there's been some confusion on the calendars where you have some individuals that are going directly from unleavened bread, and the second day of unleavened bread, which would be like the 16th of Abib, they're going into first fruits, confusing the three appearances that happen throughout the year with the holy day of first fruits. So we're going to get into that. But before we go, directly into the law, we're going to look at law versus tradition. We're going to look at, how Mashiach, how his part is playing in the fulfillment of these holy days. And that is second witness to when these days are supposed to be kept. Even with Passover itself, where he was actually keeping Passover according to an ancient calendar, which was before the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees were keeping the Jews' Passover, like they write in the Bible. So we're going to get into that. We're going to open up in 2 Kings. So we're going to go to Dibri Melachim, chapter 22. 2 Kings, chapter 22. And this is an open forum, so if you have questions or comments, you can log into our app under the chat room, or you can comment directly on our Facebook. All right, so let me go ahead and pull up the scripts. All right, we're going to 2 Kings chapter 22, and we're going to start at verse 10. All right, bear with me 1 second. All right, so we're at 2 Kings chapter 22, and what we're having here, just so you can get the background, Josiah was one of the young kings of Judah that became king. He was 8 years old when he became king, and about 8 years later, Yah put it on his heart to try to fix the temple and try to get things back in order. So he sent the priest to reckon about the money and to find out what needs to be done, and how we can take the money that was in the treasury to go ahead and fix the temple. All right, so we're at 2 Kings chapter 22 and verse 10. And Shaphan the scribe showed the king, saying, Hilkiah the priest has delivered me a book. And Shaphan read it before the king. And it came to pass, when the king had heard the words of the book of the law, that he rent his clothes. And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest and Ahikam the son of Shaphan, and Achbor the son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Azahiah a servant of the king's, saying, Go ye, inquire of Yahweh for me and for the people, and for all Yahweh concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is the wrath of Yahweh that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened unto the words of this book, to do according to all that which is written concerning us. So this is the heart of a king right here. So he's discovering that the way that his ancestors were doing things was not consistent with what was in the book of the law. So he's renting his clothes. In other words, he's showing outwardly that, look, I do not agree with this. This is horrible. And he is saying, this great wrath has come upon us because of the traditions. So this is a different spirit on this king here, because maybe some of the other kings before him, or even some of the kings after him, would have just said, well, this was the tradition that we do, so I do what my dad do. It says honor your father and your mother, so I'm just going to do what my father did. But every so often you have a different spirit come on certain brothers and sisters that say, you know what, let me check on this. I know that this is what I was taught, but let me inquire to see if I was taught the right thing. And when they uncover that they have been taught the wrong thing, or they have been following the wrong thing, a decision has to be made. Do I just continue and it's just easier because we've been doing this, or do I make changes? So he's deciding, well, let's go ahead and talk to y'all. Let's find out what's going on. Verse 14. And Shabbat Shalom to my brother Yafi Yehuda. Good to see you, family. And as always, a special Shabbat Shalom to the Hicks family. Good to see you, sis. All right, so verse 14. So Hilkiah the priest and Ahikam and Achbor and Shaphan and Azahiah went unto Huldah the prophetess, the wife of Shalom, the son of Tikva, the son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she dwelt in Jerusalem in the college, and they communed with her. And she said unto them, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of Yasharal, tell the man that sent you to me. Thus says Yahweh, Behold, I will bring an evil upon this place and upon the inhabitants thereof, even all the words of the book which the king of Yahweh has read. Because you have forsaken me and have burned incense unto other mighty ones, that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath shall be kindled against this place and shall not be quenched. But to the king of Yahweh, which sent you to inquire of Yahweh, thus shall you say to him, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of Yasharal, as touching the words which you has heard. because your heart was tender and you has humbled yourself before Yahweh. So he humbled himself. He's already in position of power. It's easier for him to just fall back on what everybody's comfortable with, what all the elders are comfortable with, because the elders are the ones that were doing it, right? What all the people are comfortable with, because this is what they have been brought up and taught in. But instead, he humbled himself before Yah. Instead of the people, he's humbling himself to Yah. And it says, when you heard what I spake against this place and against the inhabitants thereof, that they should become a desolation and a curse, and has rent your clothes and wet before me, I also have heard you, says Yahweh. So he read what Yah said would happen if we didn't keep these commandments, if we worshiped idols. So he believed it as if it already happened. And Yah attributed righteousness unto him in his heart because he believed. And he said, let me go do something about this because this is wrong. Look, Yah says that means we are going to be destroyed. If we haven't been destroyed, we're on our way to destruction. So this is the same pattern that's written before us, so that when we discover, hey, we were brought up Christian, or hey, we were brought up Judeo-Christian, a non-believing Israelite. We were brought up a certain way where we are taught Jewish traditions, or we are taught Christian-ish traditions, right? But once we go back to the law and we realize, wait, this is not right. Do you believe Yah when he says this is what's going to happen to you and your people if you continue in that way? Or do you say, hey, we're doing good right now, so it's just words in the book? Well, the king believed. All right. Verse 22, behold, therefore I will gather you unto your fathers, and you shall be gathered into your grave in peace, and your eyes shall not see all the evil which I will bring upon this place. And they brought the king word again. So, a lot of times our elders pass, and we mourn for them, or young, good people. They said good die young, right? Well, good people die young, and we mourn for them. But consider sometimes Yah is removing them, just like it says in Isaiah, so that they don't have to witness the evil that is to come. All right, so we're going to go to the next chapter. We're going to read 1 through 25. So Divri Melachim, 2 Kings, chapter 23 and verse 1. And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Yahweh and of Jerusalem. And the king went up into the house of Yahweh, and all the men of Yahweh and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets, all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant, which was found in the house of Yahweh. And that's what a king does. Again, he proclaims this truth. He goes in of his dominion, at least. He can't go to the king of Egypt and say, I'm going to read this, everybody here. No, he went to his dominion. So you heads of houses, we call yourself kings, right? You're the king of your kingdom, your dominion. Well, when you find out your house has been doing it wrong, you need to bring the law to your house and say, hey, thus says Yah, so that the whole house understands this is what we're going to be governed by. Verse 3, and the king stood by a pillar and made covenant before Yahweh to walk after Yahweh and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. So he made everybody confirm. So this is the same thing a king of his house has to do. Matter of fact, before even becoming part of the house, this is said in marriage vows. These are the laws of Yah. This house is going to be governed by Yah. And we are going to keep it to the best of our ability, according to the best of our heart, our soul, to perform these words of the covenant. Verse 4. And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest, and the priests of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of Yahweh all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the grove, and for all the host of heaven, and he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron. and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. So again, this is the righteous holy order. You start with yourself. Once you realize, wait a minute, I have been doing idol practices, I have been worshiping other gods. Once this book of the law comes to you, you have to destroy the idols, the little Christian cross with the little white man hanging on the death symbol, all that. You got to get rid of that. You destroy that. You don't put it to the side and say, well, I like it. No, you destroy it. You get rid of it. It's the same thing when a man takes a wife and you bring your wife into your house and you are a servant of the Most High. You get rid of idol practices. You destroy all idolatry, all images of Baal, images of false gods, whatever practices that are not of Yah have to be destroyed. You don't negotiate with those things. Those things have to be destroyed. And these are why these examples of righteous kings were given unto us, because we were also given the example of unrighteous kings, which didn't do that. All right, verse 5. And he put down the idolatrous priests, who the kings of Yahweh had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Yahweh and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burn incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the host of heaven. This is what the ancestors were doing, and were and are doing. They are sacrificing, and when you say burning incense, you burn incense to carry prayers. They're praying to the God of the sun. They're praying to the God of the moon with lunar worship. That's why you have a lunar calendar. Well, the term Luna is literally a pagan god. And those that have a solar calendar, Solar is another pagan god. That's why we have an Enochian, Zadokian calendar, which has nothing to do with the goddess of the sun or the goddess of the moon. And these planets with Saturn worship and moon worship and fridge worship, all these different pagans, all the host of heaven. He put down those priests. So when you in your life, you get rid of those people in your life. Now, you don't necessarily kill them, but you kill their influence in your life. All the idolatrous priest or priestess that are worshiping anything other than Yah through Bahashem Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Verse 6. And those people, by the way, are called witches and warlocks. All right, verse 6. And he brought out the grove from the house of Yahweh. So what is this grove? Let's look at what that is, right? He brought out the Asherah pole, them totem poles. That's the same thing in Jeremiah chapter 10 that they liken unto the Christmas tree. That's the same thing when you look at Sinners, that movie, and he went out there and his little baby was buried and had that little wooden thing where his baby was buried coming out. Yeah, that's an Asherah pole. That's pagan worship. We don't do that. We're supposed to destroy those things, not copy it because that's what our ancestors did. So this is what the righteous king is doing. He got rid of those Asherah poles, right? Upon the graves, let's read that. And he brought the grove from the house of Yahweh without Jerusalem onto the brook of Kidron, and he burned it at the brook of Kidron, and stamped it small into powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. Look at that. The graves, the same thing they were putting them Asherah poles over the dead. Same thing. Verse 7. And he brake down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of Yahweh, where the woman wove hangings for the grove. So they literally had temple prostitution, male prostitutes. You don't negotiate with those things. Now, you can't go into 14th Street and Peachtree where they got a rainbow painted on the ground and try to push people out and say, get out of here. No rainbow. Nah, that's ridiculous. But you in your house, on your property, in your land, under your control, nah, we don't authorize that here. Now, you do whatever you want to do in your house, but here, this says, thus says Yah, not thus says me. This is thus says Yah. So he got rid of all these things. He's not negotiating. And neither should you, as a man of your house, negotiate with any sodomy or any of this type of stuff that's against Yah. Verse 8. And he brought all the priests out of the cities of Yahweh and defiled the high places where the priests had burned incense from Jeba to Beersheba, and break down the high places of the gates that were in the entering in the gates of Yahshua, the governor of the city, which were on the man's left hand at the gate of the city. So he's all these high places. The high places will be likened to all these churches with these high steeples on every corner. Those are the high places where they did pagan worship, as it is done to this day. Verse 9. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of Yahweh in Jerusalem, but they did eat of the unleavened bread among their brethren. And he defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. And he took away the horses that the kings of Yahweh had given to the sun at the entering in of the house of Yahweh by the chamber of Nathan Melech, the chamberlain, which was in the suburbs, and burned the chariots of the sun with fire. Get rid of all that pagan worship. It's vanity. And not only is it vanity, it brings death. Verse 12. And the altars that were on the top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, which the kings of Yahweh had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of the house of Yahweh, did the king beat down and break them down from thence, and cast the dust of them into the brook of Kidron. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mount of corruption, which Shlomo, the king of Yasharal, had builded for Ashtoreth. That's the same goddess that we get Easter from, the same thing that the pagans just worshiped last week, right? Shlomo, the king of Yasharal, literally built an abomination for them, for the Zidonians, and for Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Did the king defile? Now we know Shlomo was the wisest king ever in the history of Yasharal, right? And this was his tradition that he's pushing forward. But do we worship man because he was the king of Judah? He was the son of David? No. We don't worship anybody over Yah. We have to change those things. It doesn't matter who did it. Whether it was your moray, your elder, your dad, your grandfather, whether it was King David. If this is against Yah, you don't do it. Keep in mind, King David committed adultery, right? So you gonna do it because he did it? Nah, we don't do it because Yah said don't do it. It comes with death penalty. Now, Yah will impute sin to whom he will and whom he won't, but that's his choice, not ours. Verse 14, and he brake in pieces the images and cut down the groves and filled their places with the bones of men. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel and the high place which Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Yasharal to sin, had made, both the altar and the high place, he broke down and burned the high place and stamped it to small to powder and burned the grove. And as Josiah turned himself, he spied the sepulchres that were there in the mount. And he sent and took the bones out of the sepulchres and burned them upon the altar and polluted it, according to the word of Yahweh, which the man of Alahaim proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. So this was prophecy. Verse 17. Then he said, what title is that I see? And the men of the city told him, it is the sepulchre of the man of Alahaim, which came from Yehuda, and proclaimed these things that you has done against the altar of Bethel. And he said, let him alone. Let no man move his bones. So they let his bones alone, and the bones of the prophet that came out of Samaria. And what this is referring to here, I know this a little bit intimately because this is 1 Kings chapter 13 that they're talking about here. which First Kings is the 11th book. And in the 13th chapter, it talks about a prophet out of Judah, right? And this prophet was sent to the northern tribes to warn them. And Yah said, don't eat with them, don't fellowship. Just say what you got to say and leave. Don't even come the same way. Don't even leave the same way you came. And another prophet, a false prophet from the northern tribes, convinced him to go against Yah's word, saying, hey, I'm also a fellow prophet. So he was respecter of man. And while he was literally eating a lion, while he was literally eating, Yah came to him and told him specifically, bruh, you finna die today. You didn't listen to what I said. So he stopped and he tried to leave. And as he was leaving, a lion snatched him off his horse and tore him to shreds, but didn't eat him, but just left him there and waited on that same false prophet. And that false prophet came and saw him and bewailed him and said, I'm going to bury you in my grave, because the curse that was put on him, the angel Yah told him, hey, look, you ain't even going to be buried in Judah. That was your punishment. So he was being buried here in northern Israel, along with that prophet that convinced him to not listen to Yah. So this is that story that's referring to right here. And because Josiah is reading the word, he read the word, he's honoring that. All right, verse 19. And all the houses also of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Yasharal had made to provoke Yahweh to anger, Josiah took away and did to them according to all the acts that had done in Bethel. And he slew all the priests of the high places that were there upon the altars, and burnt men's bones upon them, and returned to Jerusalem. So here you have is an example of how a righteous king dealt with finding out that the way that we were doing things is wrong. This is tradition. This is man's tradition. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the book of Ezekiel. We're going to go to Yechezkiel chapter 44. Ezekiel chapter 44. And what we're doing is we're getting a precedence here. We're making a case. So we're making a case of, well, what are we supposed to do when we find out the thing that we were doing, that we were taught by our parents and our elders and our leaders, is a tradition of man that is literally opposite of Yah? How do we deal with that? So we're going to Ezekiel, Yechezkiel chapter 44, and we're going to read 6 through 16. So what are the priests supposed to do? Well, one thing the priests definitely not supposed to do is go against the word of Yah. So we're going to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 44, and we're going to read verses 6 through 16. And Shabbat Shalom, sis Ariel, good to see you. All right, so Yechezkiel chapter 44 and verse 6. And you shall say to the rebellious, even to the house of Yasharah, thus says the Adonai Elohim, O you house of Yasharah, let it suffice you of all your abominations, and that you have brought into my sanctuary strangers, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my sanctuary, to pollute it, even my house. When you offer my bread, the fat and the blood, and they have broken my covenant because of all your abominations. So what we have in at this time is we have where the temple has been defiled. Now we letting all type of people from all manners of, because remember, the northern tribes were scattered. Once the northern tribes were scattered, they started just allowing anybody to be priests. It got so bad that the Levites ended up leaving the northern tribes when they scattered, and came back to Jerusalem because it was that bad. They was making anybody a priest. If you owe me money, go ahead. You be a priest over here and collect money. So it got that bad. Verse 9. And Shabbat Shalom, sis Danya Cooper Davis. Good to see you, family. All right, verse 8. And you have not kept the charge of my, verse 7, in that you have brought into my sanctuary, verse 8, and you have not kept the charge of my holy things, but you have set keepers of my charge in my sanctuary for yourselves. So they set the sanctuary up towards what would benefit them, letting anybody, heathens, run things. And in the time of Mashiach, they was allowing Edomites to run things. Verse 9, thus says Adonai Elohim, no stranger uncircumcised in heart, nor uncircumcised in flesh, shall enter into my sanctuary of any stranger that is among the children of Yasharal. And the Levites that are gone away from me, when Yasharal went astray, which went astray from me after their idols, they shall even bear their iniquity. Yet they shall be ministers in my sanctuary, having charge at the gates of the house and ministering to the house. They shall slay the burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall stand before them to minister unto them, because they ministered unto them before their idols and caused the house of Yasharal to fall into iniquity. Therefore have I lifted up my hand against them, says the Adonai Elohim, and they shall bear their iniquity. So again, our forefathers and our leadership and our priests have went to idol worship. So our leadership and our elders are idol worshiping. What do you think the children are going to do? They don't know the right way. They're not being taught the right way. It's hard enough when you teach children the right way to get them to follow the right way. How much more is it harder for them to be taught the wrong way and fight to go seek to learn the right way? So there's a blessing in that we have all been taught the wrong way as children, but grew up as adults that would literally seek out the truth and go against the traditions of men in order to establish the right way so that we can correct this with our own children. And hallelujah, many of us are first generation. This is one of the first years that my own children as adults were able to follow in the path of being taught the right thing. I couldn't follow that if I wasn't taught. My parents couldn't follow that. They weren't taught, and vice versa. Verse 14, but I will make them keepers of the charge of the house for all the service thereof and for all that shall be done therein. But the priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok, and this is why we use a Zadokian calendar, because the priests of Zadok were the ones that kept the charge. Everybody else went with leadership. Verse 15, but the priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok, that kept the charge of my sanctuary when the children of Yasharal went astray from me, they shall come near to me to minister unto me, and they shall stand before me to offer unto me the fat and the blood, says the Adonai Elohim. They shall enter my sanctuary, and they shall come near to my table to minister unto me, and they shall keep my charge. So again, Yah knew that we were going to fall into this situation. So again, he always has a remnant. So these remnant of priests, this one bloodline, the Zadokian bloodline of Aaron, of the Aaronic priesthood, the only branch that kept it. These are those that kept the law over the tradition of man. And this is what we are returning to. We are returning to those and learning from those that are keeping the law over those that are teaching and following the tradition of man. So now you're going to see Mashiach address this same thing. So he's showing you example in his own living. So we're going to book of Marcus, Mark chapter 7. So we're doing things a little different this class. Usually I go straight into the law and we break down the law of how we keep, first fruits and when it is and this, that, and the other. But we're going backwards this time. This time we're going into the mind frame that we need to be into in order to seek the truth, right? Which means willing to destroy idols, willing to be obedient. And then we have to see how this was done. What kind of veracity was used to destroy the opposite, the adverse to Yah, right? Then we're going to go into the example of how it's being done right. And then we're going to go to the law. And all of it should be congruent. It should all come together. If Yah's word is true and this is being taught correctly, it should all come together perfect with no contradiction. So we're in the book of Marcus, Mark chapter 7, and we're going to read 1 through 13, and we're going to see Mashiach check these traditions of men. Verse 1. Then came together unto him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes which came from Jerusalem. And when they saw some of the disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say, with unwashed hands, they found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Yahudim, except they wash their hands often, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders. Now, listen, it's probably not a bad practice to wash your hands before you eat. But if this is some kind of ritual where you gotta, I can't eat, I gotta wash my hands 7 times and walk in a circle and skip to my, listen, did Yah say do that? No. Then that's a tradition. So it's optional. That's what you want to do, you can do it, but you can't rebuke somebody because they don't want to follow you. Now they're breaking the commandment. Now they're idol worshiping. Verse 4. And when they come from the market, except they wash, they eat not. And many other things there be, which they have received to hold, as the washing of cups and pots, brassen vessels, and of tables. And they, as it do to this day, when you, if you ever go to a Catholic church, see, I was raised Catholic. When you go to a Catholic church, every Sunday, they got the Euro Gentile standing up there with a cup, and he's sitting there washing this cup 50,000 times and folding a napkin certain way and this and drinking out of it like he's actually drinking of the blood of Mashiach, right? Well, these are traditions that they're following traditions of things they don't even fully understand. If they did, they'd be keeping the Shabbat. But it's the same thing, and they feel like they holy because of this outward display. All right, verse 5. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why walk not your disciples? Why walk not your disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? He answered and said unto them, well has Yeshua prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, the people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. So he's calling them hypocrites. You say, but you don't do, right? You say you keep the law, but you're not. Verse 7. Howbeit in vain do they worship me. So in vanity, worthlessness are they worshiping. So they're bowing down to worthlessness and attributing it to Yahushua, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. So instead of teaching, thus says Yah, instead of reading what's in the book, they're teaching what they have been taught. Commandments of men. They're teaching what people do instead of what we are supposed to do according to what Yah said. Verse 8. For laying aside the commandment of Elohim, so they put the Yah's commandment to the side. They're not doing that. So that you hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups and many other such like things you do. So what other commandments they not keeping? Well, one, they not keeping the holy days. They got a whole different calendar. They following moon. They following stars. They following anything. Pagan worship. other than following what thus says Yah. And he said unto them, for well you reject the commandment of Elohim, that you may keep your own tradition. And that's what many people will have to do. A lot of these traditions, you got to reject Yah's commandment. In order to keep Easter, you got to reject Yah's commandment to not idol worship. In order to not keep the Shabbat, you got to go against Yah's commandment. But that's the tradition. I was raised in a tradition that every Sunday we go to church. That's man's tradition. That's not right. When I became an adult, I got a little book, just randomly came to me. I forgot the name of it. I think it was called Sunday Worship or something like that. And it's some small little pamphlet, and it broke down how the Shabbat was Saturday. So I started looking at the calendar and calculating. I was like, wow, this is a tradition of man. I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? Continue rejecting Yah's commandment so I can keep this tradition, or make a change? Verse 10, for Moshe said, honor your father and your mother, and whoso curses father or mother, let him die the death. But you say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is Corban, that is to say, a gift by whatsoever you might be profit of me, he shall be free. And this word Corban right there, that's a Hebrew word. Remember that word right there, Corban. All right, that is a specific type of offering. So they're trying to say, where are you supposed to honor your father and your mother? You don't just grow to a certain age and then you ain't got to honor them no more. No, you honor your father or mother. Well, when we are to make offerings, because 3 times a year, all males must appear and people had to offer. Well, if your parents was too old, they couldn't offer for themselves. You had to offer for them. But the Jewish practice talks about right here, rather let it be Corban, a formula common among the Jews on such occasions, by which the Pharisees released the child from supporting his parents, and even deemed it as sacrilege if he afterwards gave anything for their use. So they made it wicked to take care of your parents. They couldn't take care of themselves when it came to offering for them, because you had to offer for every male, had to offer 3 times a year. Plus you had your first fruit offering, right? So they said, nah, anything that is offered, you already blessed because I'm the offering. I don't got to do nothing for you. I don't got to honor you. You should be honored that you had me, a Pharisee. This is the crap that they were doing. Jewish traditions, any way to not pay some money, not offer something that cost you. Verse 12. And you suffer no more to do aught for his father or his mother, making the word of Elohim none effect through your tradition, which you delivered, and many such like things do you. So Mashiach rejected those traditions of man. Get rid of those traditions, especially the ones that are going against Yah. Now, if Yah says on the 15th day of Abib is unleavened bread, and you decide, well, I'm going to do it in the 6th month on the 8th day, that's transgression. You're going against Yah. I don't care if it's tradition. I don't care if your grandma coming down that week for her birthday and you just want to all do it. That's going against Yah. So these holy days, now that you're aware of these things and what they represent, you got to go against the traditions. Once you find out that you are doing it wrong, or you have been doing a tradition, you got to seek the right way and correct it. All right, so let's go to Hebrews, the book of Abarim, Hebrews chapter 10. We're going to read 1 through 7. All right, we're in the book of Abarim, Hebrews chapter 10. And we're going to read 1 through 7. And what we have to understand is, while we're going to prepare to go into the commandments, which tell us exactly how we're supposed to keep these Moedim, these set apart days and these Hagogs, these festivals and things of that nature, these feasts, Mashiach came after all this and started to fulfill these holy days so that he could be a sign unto us, so that we could see him embodying these things, so we can get a better understanding of our salvation plan. So before he came in the flesh to start doing all these things had to be written so that he could fulfill these things to show, well, thus says Yah is true, and I'm going to do what thus says Yah. Verse 1. For the law having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect. For then would they not have ceased to be offered? Because that the worshipers once purged should have no more conscience of sin. So if these animal sacrifices that were grace for us during that time period could make us perfect, then we wouldn't have to keep doing it, is what they're saying. We wouldn't have no more conscience of sins. We wouldn't even know how to do it no more, because we know right from wrong. Verse 3. But in those sacrifices, there is remembrance again made of sins every year. For it's not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. Wherefore, when he comes into the world, he says, sacrifice and offering you would not, but a body has you prepared for me. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin you has no pleasure. Then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me to do your will, O Elohim. So there it is. I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me. So this is foreshadowing of Mashiach, who will come in the flesh and fulfill these things written of him, as he did. And as he fulfilled certain of those things, the remaining portion is being fulfilled by the body of Mashiach. And that body of Mashiach is us, the believing Israelites. All right, let's read one more, and then we're going to go into how he's fulfilling first fruits. Let's go to Yohanan, John chapter 5. John chapter 5. And we're going to read verses 36 through 47. Verse 36. But I have greater witness than that of Yohanan. For the works which the Father hath given me to finish, the same works I do, I bear witness of me, that the Father has sent me. And the Father himself, which has sent me, has borne witness of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time, nor seen his shape. So again, be careful when people tell you things. People tell you anything, right? But what does their actions testify? Somebody come and tell you, hey, I'm a servant of Yah. Hey, I'm an Israelite. Really? Well, what does your actions bear witness of? Just like we talked about that servant from Judah, the servant of Elohim, the one that Josiah wouldn't touch his bones. Well, that servant was told by another prophet, a false prophet, a real prophet was being told by a false prophet that Yah had told him, nah, I changed the plan. But if he would have been more able to try the spirit by the spirit and say, you know what, thus says Yah, you're speaking against Yah, he might have not have fell in that mistake, but he trusted the flesh. He trusted somebody who gave a convincing argument that he was also a fellow servant of Yah, a fellow prophet. You can't do that. Yah's words will testify of you, of where you stand. Verse 38, and you have not his word abiding in you, for whom he has sent him you believe not. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. So Mashiach is letting you know, look at these scriptures here. These scriptures are testifying of me. Again, I come in the volume of the book. So Mashiach is fulfilling these things. He's fulfilling these prophecies, showing you that Yah's word is true and that he's going to do what Yah's word says. And you're seeing the second witness of that. All right. Verse 40. And you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. I'm come in my Father's name, and you receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. And see, that's the problem. People hold the appellation of a sinful man higher than the honor that they hold for Yah. Because if a lot of people come around and say, yeah, this is a good guy, this is a smart guy, he's a holy guy, he's a talented guy, or this is the Messiah. If everybody is saying that, a lot of people will believe it. Most people will believe it because they're giving honor to one that is getting honor from man. But that's not the test. The test is, well, when Yah sends a man or a woman that's giving you the word of Yah, are you going to receive them strictly off of the word of Yah being true? Or are you going to judge them based upon their age, their nationality, their seat of authority, or whatever things, their financial status, their reputation? Or are you going to hear Yah's words? If you have not the love of Elohim in you, you're not going to hear Yah's words. Verse 44, how can you believe which receive honor one of another and seek not the honor that comes from Elohim only? Do not think I will accuse you to the Father. There's one that accuses you, even Moshe, in whom you trust. So the law is going to accuse you. Mashiach is trying to save you. For you had believed Moshe, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how shall you believe my words? As it is to this day, if you don't believe Moshe's writings, you're not going to believe anything that we teach. Because you don't believe the law. You don't believe the truth. You don't believe the testimony. So if you believe the law and the testimony, then you will show that with your actions. That's who you're going to honor. Those that are congruent, that are equal with the truth, not those that are against or above. Let's move on. Let's go to 1 Corinthians, and now we're going to show Mashiach fulfilling these holy days. So let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 5. We're just going to read 6 through 8. First Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 6. So again, we talked about how Mashiach is fulfilling these holy days, which is the salvation plan. So now we're going to get into Mashiach, how he fulfilled Passover, Pesach. Verse 6, your glorying is not good. Know you not that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? So that's all it takes, just a little bit of sin to cause a sinful creature. That's why we can't be satisfied with a little bit of leaven in us, with a little bit of transgression. We got to constantly be trying to remove that, because if you leave it, it's going to end up leavening the whole lump or causing the whole vessel to be sinful. Verse 7, purge out therefore the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, as you are unleavened. For even Mashiach, our Pesach, is sacrificed for us. So there you have it. Yahweh is our Passover. Verse 8, therefore let us keep the feast not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So that's how we're supposed to keep unleavened bread. Not only do we just get rid of that leaven in our house, but we're supposed to get rid of the leaven in us. We put forth that old leaven, get rid of it, become a new lump, right? And keep the feast days with unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So to do that, you got to repent. That's number one. But even in keeping the holy days, you got to repent from the traditions, the way that we were traditionally doing things, looking for the new moon and trying to do this and following the Jewish calendar. When they keeping it, we keeping it, and Easter and all that. Nah, you got to get rid of that. That's how you get rid of the leaven. All right, let's move on. Let's go to Yohanan. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. So we saw Mashiach was our Passover. Now we're going to see that he was our first fruits. So 1 Corinthians chapter 15. And we're going to read 12 through 23. We have 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 12. Now, if Mashiach be preached that he rose from the dead, how say some among you that there is no resurrection of the dead? But if there be no resurrection of the dead, then is Mashiach not risen? And if Mashiach be not risen, then is our preaching vain, and your faith is also vain. Yea, and we are found false witnesses of YAH, because we have testified of YAH that he raised up Mashiach, whom he raised not up, if so be that the dead rise not. For if the dead rise not, then is not Mashiach raised. And if Mashiach be not raised, then your faith is vanity. You are yet in your sins. So if Mashiach was not able to be sacrificed for us and raised from the dead, which brings us into the grace period, then we are still in the period of animal sacrifice, which we can't lawfully do because we don't have the Levites. We don't have the sons of Aaron. We don't have the temple, and we definitely don't have the land. So then we're in our sins. We're dead. But that's not the case. Yah made a way for us. Verse 18. Then they also which are fallen asleep in Mashiach are perished. So all those people that died defending this truth, there's nothing for them because there's no life after death, if that's what you believe. Verse 19. If in this life only we have hope in Mashiach, we are of all men most miserable. But now is Mashiach risen from the dead and become the first fruits of them that slept. So Mashiach represents the first fruits of them that slept. He's the first fruits of YAH. So he's fulfilled first fruits. So we're going to actually read how he fulfilled it. Verse 21, for since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all died, even so in Mashiach shall all be made alive. But every man in his own order, Mashiach, the first fruits, afterward, they that are Mashiach's at his coming. So there you have it. Mashiach is the first fruits the first fruits of them that slept. So he fulfilled it. So now we're going to get into first fruits. We're going to get into Torah. We're going to get into these appearances and why Mashiach had to die at a specific time and why he had to appear before YAH at a specific time. All right, so we're going to go to Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 16. So let's go back to Torah. Let's go to Deuteronomy, chapter 16. And I just want to read a few verses here. Shalom, shalom to my brother Dre Day Akyam. Good to see you, family. Good to see you, King. All right. Devarim, chapter 16. And we're going to read 16 through 17. 3 times in a year shall all your males appear before Yahweh your Elohim in the place which he shall choose. All right. So 3 times all males have to appear. All right. Here are the 3 times. In the feast of unleavened bread, in the feast of weeks, which is Pentecost, and in the feast of tabernacles. So those are the 3 times a year that all males must appear. You need to appear inside the feast of unleavened bread, inside the feast of weeks, and inside the feast of tabernacles. If you're appearing outside of these times, then it's just optional. But if you're appearing inside these 3 things, these are requirements that have to be done. And it says, and they shall not appear before Yahweh empty. So there's an offering. A lot of people believe that when Mashiach was being born and the wise men from the east came and brought gifts, they thought that they were celebrating a birthday. No. They were appearing before a king. They knew the king was born, and they knew, according to the law, you do not show up before a king empty-handed. Even the nations understand that. You go in the White House, it's filled with gifts of foreign dignities that appeared before the king of America, and they brought gifts. That's standard. And what are you supposed to give? It says, every man, this 3 times a year, every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of Yahweh, your Elohim, which he has given you. So if you had a very blessed year, then you were able to give more. This is out of your abundance. You give more. If you had a very tight year, you were only able to give so much because you barely had enough for yourself. You're given according to what Yah has given you, what he allowed you to be able to give. Now, there's a certain term for that. We're going to go read the Hebrew term. Because remember, the 3 times, right? The 3 times they're supposed to appear. Unleavened bread, Feast of Weeks, which is Pentecost, and Tabernacle. So let's get the term for that. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 16 and 10. Remember, 3 times. And you shall keep the Feast of Weeks. This is when there's appearance, remember? Unto Yahweh, your Elohim, with a tribute of a free will offering. Remember, every man must give according to he is able, right? Every man give according to as he is able. Well, that is a free will offering. Let's look at that word. H5071. Nadaba, which is properly spontaneity or spontaneous or abundant gift. Free offering, freely, plentiful, voluntary. So there's no specific amount that you had to give. You just had to give freely according to the blessing, according to the abundance that you received. And remember, just because you plant a seed and water it don't mean fruit is gonna come out of it. Yah has to bless you with that. So when Yah blessed us to be abundant, we had to give abundantly. All right. So let's take a look at the law pertaining to Passover, matzah, and first fruit. So we're going to go to Leviticus chapter 23. And this is where we're going to end our class. We're going to end it here in Leviticus, and we're going to look at this first month, the holy days in the first month. And we're seeing how Mashiach fulfilled them. So Leviticus chapter 23, YAH chapter 23, we're going to start this at verse 4. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month between even is Yahweh's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto Yahweh. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. And the first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. But you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh 7 days. And in the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. So we have a term for this, right? When we have a holy convocation and we're to do no servile work, but it is not on the Shabbat, it's called Sabbathon. If we scroll back up here, we can look at that definition again. Remember? 6 days work be done, but the 7th day is the Shabbat. So 876, 76 is the day, is the 7th day, is the name given to the 7th day. And what do you do on that 7th day? Well, you have a special holiday. It's called Sabbathon, 876, 77. And what is that? Rest, the holiday of rest. A Sabbatism or special holiday rest or Shabbat. So because the leadership that was in place, that was of strangers, keep in mind at the time of Mashiach, we had Sanhedrin, we had a king who was of Edom, our literal enemy. He's not even an Israelite. So do you think a non-Israelite king wants power is going to put the leadership of the religious branch of government, you going to make it an Israelite? No, he's going to put his own people in place. His own people that can establish traditions that benefit them. So what you have in Jewish tradition, when you look at a Jewish calendar, and many of these Judeo-Christian and Hebrew Israelite ministries, they're keeping first fruits inside of unleavened bread because they're confusing the free will offering, Nadaba. They're confusing that with the Bikurim, the first fruits offering. There's a difference, and we're going to prove the difference. All right, because what they looked at is they looked at on the first day of unleavened bread being a Sabbath. When we read here in first fruits, when it talks about the morrow after the Shabbat, we're going to look at the word that was used. It's the morrow after the Sabbath day, not the Sabbathon. Those are different words. All right, so let's get into first fruits. Verse 9. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Yasharal, and say unto them, when you be come into the land which I've given unto you, and you shall reap the harvest thereof, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. So let's look at that term. Reshith, the first in place, time, order, or rank, the beginning, the chiefest. All right, so this is not only the first that comes out, but the best of the first. See, that is the only acceptable offering, is the best that you have. Cain did not offer that. He just offered from his flock. But Abel understood the assignment and offered the firstlings and the fat thereof. So he offered the best that he had to offer. All right. Says, and he shall wave the sheaf. Okay, let's start it again. Verse 10. Speak unto the children and say unto them, when you be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. So a sheaf is a measurement. Let's look at that. That's a specific amount. Yah is not vague. If he wants you on the seventh day, he's going to tell you, yeah, some kind of way around the end of the week. No, he's going to tell you the seventh day. And when he says a free will offering, according to what I gave you. If you got blessed a lot, you're going to give a lot. You had a rough year, you're only going to be able to give a little. But on first fruits, he said, no. I want a specific amount. I want a sheaf. So let's see what a sheaf is. H6016, an omer. So the Hebrew word for sheaf is omer. That's properly a heap. That is a sheaf, also an omer, as a dry measure. So this is a dry measurement of produce. That's different from free will, because if you got blessed abundantly, your land boomed. You can't even keep it all in your barns. You're supposed to give away more than just an omer. Two different offerings. And furthermore, notice how it's broken down. You have Passover. Then you have unleavened bread, which is together in the same season. And then right after it says, and Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, he's going on to something new. You can't take first fruits and stick it into the week of unleavened bread, because those are two different offerings. All males appear during unleavened bread. Typically, that's that first day of unleavened bread. You make that offering. Your free will, your nadaba, according to Yah blessed you. You have to do this 3 times a year. That's the second offer, is the first fruits offering. This is your first fruits offering of the year. You got 3 different first fruits. You got this one during the first month. Then you got another one which comes in the summer, which is during the Feast of Weeks. And then you have the last one that comes right around the winter time, which is the Feast of Ingathering, which is Tabernacles. All right, so let's look at this Feast of First Fruits. All right, it says, and he shall wave the sheaf, right? It's an omer. He shall wave the omer before Yahweh, when? To be accepted for you on the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. So let's look at that. What word is there? Sabbath, not Sabbathon. That's the rest holiday. No, the Sabbath day. So this is talking about your weekly Sabbath. So what weekly Sabbath is this talking about? This is talking about the weekly Sabbath that comes after you finished your whole week of unleavened bread. So you got to finish your week of unleavened bread, and then the Sabbath day when unleavened bread, the feast day, starts on a Tuesday night. On the Tuesday night. So that Tuesday night, you got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then Sunday. Then Monday night, starting the last day. You're not talking about the Sabbath before unleavened bread is over with. And you're not talking about the Sabbathon, which is Abib 16, which is the second day of unleavened bread. You have to get through the whole week. You got to get through the holy day first. Then when you get through that, You got the rest of the week. Then you have your weekly Shabbat, which brings us to today. The first weekly Shabbat after the whole week of unleavened bread, which ended Tuesday during at sundown. Because Monday night started the last day, the seventh day. So Tuesday daytime, when the sun went down, that was the last day. Then we had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That brings us today, Saturday, the Shabbat. So the morrow after the Shabbat is always going to be what? Sunday, the first day of the week. All right. Let's go back. And he shall wave the sheaf before Yahweh to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Shabbat, the priest shall wave it. And you shall offer that day when you wave the sheaf of a he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto Yahweh. And the offering that's made on that day is also a clue that this is not a Sabbath. It's not treated as a Sabbath. Because on Sabbath, you at least 7 lambs you're supposed to sacrifice. But on these regular appointed days or solemn days, it's only 1. So they're putting a difference between the Sabbath and the Sabbathon. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2 tenths deals of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto Yahweh for a sweet savor. And the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the 4th part of a hin. All right, so now let's get into the proof. This is the solid proof that you cannot have first fruits inside of the week of unleavened bread, or else there's just full of contradictions. And we know Yah's word has no contradictions. It's man's understanding and traditions contradicts Yah's word. All right, so verse 15. Verse 14. And you shall eat neither bread. Let's look at that word for bread, lahaim. All right, so that's bread with leaven in it. You shall eat neither bread nor parched corn, which is grilled corn, nor green ears, which is produce. So you can't eat bread, you can't have roasted corn, and you can't have produce until the self same day that you have brought an offering unto your Elohim. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. So where's the contradiction in that? Well, let's look at that. It says you can't eat bread. And lahaim is bread that's complete, that has leaven in it. Because if you go here to unleavened bread, let's go look at unleavened bread. You go to unleavened bread, it's a different word letting you know that this bread has no leaven in it. Right here. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. What's that word? Matzah. In the sense of greedily devouring for sweetness, properly sweetness, because it's sweet because it don't have leaven in it. Leaven makes things bitter. That is not soured or bittered with yeast, specifically an unfermented cake or loaf. So you see the contradiction here? How can you tell somebody during the week of unleavened bread that after they make their first fruits offering, and just say you do it like the Jewish people and do it on the 2nd day of unleavened bread, that now some kind of way it is technically lawful for you to eat bread with leaven in it? That can't happen. It can't happen. It would only be permissible if it's outside of unleavened bread. So it's proving to you, just in the commandments alone, that first fruits has to be outside of unleavened bread, or this statement would make no sense. And you should eat neither bread, which is lahaim, bread with leaven in it, until the same day that you brought an offering unto Yahweh. So if you brought that offering on the 16th and you ate unleavened bread, according to first fruits, it's lawful. But according to matzah, it's unlawful. According to unleavened bread, you can't do that. So that's a contradiction. We know there's no contradiction. It is man's tradition that brought that contradiction. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to see this proof in Mashiach's resurrection. All right. Let's go to the book of Yohanan. But before you do that, why it's so important to get that first fruits right is because you got to count from the day after you made your first fruit offering, which is the day after the Shabbat. You got to count 7 Sabbaths. So you got to count 7 weeks after that date in order to be able to know when to keep the next first fruits, which is going to be your next appearance, which is Feast of Weeks, Shabbat, right? Pentecost. But if you would have kept it using the weekly Sabbath that's during the week of unleavened bread, it's a week too early. And definitely a week going to be way early if you're using the second day of unleavened bread, which the Jewish people do. And this was actually documented in Flavius Josephus. They were following the moon at that time, and that's why they were doing it that way. They had all the holy days wrong because they following traditions of Edomites. That's not what we did. That's not what the Zadokians did. That's why the Essenes and people like this had to go out to the wilderness in order to preserve these things in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So let's go to the book of John, Yohanan chapter 20, and we're going to have proof through Mashiach's resurrection and the story after he was resurrected. All right, so we're going to John chapter 20 for the conclusion. We're going to look at Mashiach's death and resurrection to show you how to keep these holy days. Yohanan, John, chapter 20, and we're going to start this at verse 1 for the conclusion. The first day of the week comes Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and see the stone taken away from the sepulchre. So, okay, first day of the week, Saturday night. While it's still dark, how you know it's Saturday night? Because it's still dark. So Saturday night begins Sunday. All right. And she noticed the sepulchre was already, the stone was gone. So Mashiach was already resurrected by Saturday night. John 20 and verse 2, then she runneth and come to Shimeon, Kepha, and to the other disciple whom Yahushua loved, and I'm assuming that is his blood brother, and says unto him, they have taken away the Adonai out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. Kepha therefore went forth, and the other disciple, and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Kepha, and came first to the sepulchre. And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went he not in. Then cometh Shimeon Kepha following him, and he went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie, and the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. Then went in also the other disciple, which came first to the sepulchre, and he saw and believed. For as yet they knew not the scripture that he must rise again from the dead. Then the disciples went again unto their own home. But Mary stood without the sepulchre weeping, and as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the sepulchre, and see 2 angels in white sitting, the one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body of Yahushua had lain. And they say unto her, woman, why weepest you? She says unto them, because they have taken away my Adonai, and I know not where they have laid him. And when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Yahushua standing, and knew not that it was Yahushua. Yahushua says unto her, woman, why weepest you? Whom seek you? She, supposing him to be the gardener, says unto him, sir, if you have taken him here, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Yahushua say unto her, Miriam. She turned herself and said unto him, Rabboni, which is to say, Master. Yahushua says unto her, touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and to my Elohim and your Elohim. So here, what's the mystery in that? Well, first of all, you got to understand the resurrection timeline here. So we know that this is Saturday night. So he couldn't have been killed on Friday and was seen Saturday. It just don't add up. It just don't add up. All right. So we're going to go through that resurrection timeline, but just look at it from this point. All right. So we know that this is the first of the week, Saturday night to be specific. And he's saying, don't touch me, for I have not ascended to my Father. So when you're waving the first fruit, he is the first fruit. When is the first fruit supposed to be presented before the Father? On first fruits. But clearly here on the first day of the week, which is at least 3 full days and 3 full nights, which is well past the second day of unleavened bread, he has still not gone to the Father. So him representing first fruits, showing you first fruits could not have happened yet, because he hasn't gone before the Father. And remember, the calendar isn't that far off. It's not 2 weeks, 3 weeks behind. It's only a couple days off. Verse 18. Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen Adonai and had spoken these things unto her. All right. Then the same day at evening. So if it's the same day, that means it is Sunday, the first day of the week, and now it's after 3 p.m. Remember, from the third part of the day is given to the, not given to the light. It's considered a dark portion. So evening, growing towards the even point, starts at about 3 p.m. This is the same time when he died, around that same time. So this evening, being still the first day of the week, so it's ending the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for the fear of the Yahudim, came Yahushua and stood in the midst and said unto them, peace be unto you. And when he had said so, he showed up unto them with his hands and his side. Then were they disciples glad when they saw the Adonai. Then said Yahushua unto them, peace be unto you, as my Father has sent me, even so I send you. And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said unto them, receive you the Holy Ghost. Whosoever sins you remit, they are remitted unto them. And whosoever sins you retain, they are retained. So yet he didn't say anybody touched him. He came with the holes, but nobody's touching him. He showed it to them. All right. But right above on the same day, he said, look, don't touch me. I've not been before my Father. All right. Verse 24. But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Yahushua came. The other disciples therefore said unto him, we have seen the Adonai. But he said unto them, except I shall see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hands into his side, I will not believe. Now, if that don't sound like Hebrew, we ain't believing nothing unless we see it ourselves. Verse 26. Now here's a clue. And after 8 days, why they got to be 8 days? Why do they have to say specifically 8 days? These things are being accounted for a reason. These are proof points. This is like a murder mystery where you're putting clues together, where this innocent man was murdered. So we're going to look at a calendar, and we're going to count these days so we can see the exact accuracy here. And after 8 days, again, his disciples were within, and Thomas was with them, then came Yahushua, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst and said, peace be unto you. Then says he to Thomas, reach here your finger and behold my hands, and reach here your hand and thrust it into my side, and be not faithless, but believing. And Thomas answered and said unto him, my Adonai, my Elohim. Yahweh Shai say unto him, Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. So are you blessed? We like to use that term, blessed and highly favored, right? But are you blessed? That's what you have to ask yourself. Are you blessed? Do you believe? We didn't see these things. We weren't around. We don't know if this is what happened. We got to believe what is written. But do you believe? That's the question. So do you believe what's written? Or are you going to believe tradition? You're going to believe what man says. You're going to believe what the masses are doing. You're going to believe what everybody else is doing. Well, blesses those that believe and have not seen. So now what we're going to do to close out, we're going to pull up the Qumran calendar. So here's the Qumran calendar, this or Zadokian calendar, right? And notice there's only one name of a month, Abib. You don't have all those other pagan names. And there's only one name of the day, the Sabbath day. Everything else is numbered. First day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, Sabbath day. And look, every week it repeats. They ain't no, there's a new moon and then all of a sudden there's an extra day. That's foolishness. That's tradition of man. All right. Look at the months, second month, third month, fourth month, fifth month, so forth and so on. And look how the Zadokian calendar had it. The 14th of Abib was Passover. The 15th through the 21st was unleavened bread, Hag Matzah, right? And look where they have first fruits on the 26th of Abib. The 26th of Abib. So right here, the 26th of Abib, they don't have it here like the Jewish people have it. They have it on the 16th of Abib. That's still in the week of unleavened bread. How are you going to tell somebody they can eat bread with leaven in it because they made their first fruit offering? First of all, again, just to recap, first fruit is a sheaf. That's an omer. That's a dry measure amount. The offering that's made is a free will offering. That happens 3 times a year. Different offerings. So let's validate that according to the story that we had, that we just read in John chapter 20. So here on the 14th day, in between evenings, right here, in between the 14th and the 15th, this is where Mashiach, let's zoom in. Here is where Mashiach was killed. They had to rush to bury him before this. And now this is the true calendar, but their calendar is a little off. So on their 14th day, Mashiach was killed. He had a real calendar where he fulfilled things according to their calendar to be a sign, but he kept the holy days according to our calendar. So on the 14th day, their 14th day, he was murdered. They were trying to bury him before their 15th day. All right, we're doing Tuesday and Wednesday. So he died here. He had to be buried before this day started, because then this would be the feast day, Hag Matzah. So let's count that. So he had 1 full day, 2 full days, 3 full days. All right, that's 3 full days. Well, he was buried starting the night. So let's do that again. Let's count the 3 full days and 3 full nights. So all day of the 16th of Abib, all day of the 17th of Abib. So this would have been Thursday, all Friday, and all Saturday during the daytime. Excuse me, couldn't have been that way. I apologize, Salakia. He had to be buried for the night starting the 15th. So that's 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. So that last night would be Friday night, is the last night. Then the daytime of Saturday, you'd have it again. 1 full day, 2 full days, 3 full days. That brings you into Saturday. He would have rose Friday night sometime, Saturday night sometime, which begins the Sabbath day. So she saw him this point here after the Sabbath ended, and you started going towards the first of the month of the week. So this is the first day, Sunday, to say he rose on Sunday, right? Well, he was seen on Sunday during the daytime. So here it is, that morning he's seen. He said, touch me not, I haven't been to the Father. You're still in unleavened bread, right? So let's count 8 days from that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You think that's a coincidence? That he's seen 8 days after, literally the next day after first fruits, and says, hey, touch me. If he says, don't touch me, I haven't been to the Father, I haven't ascended, I haven't been to first fruits yet. Then all of a sudden he says, touch me. Does that not imply that he's already been to the Father? Again, that's not a coincidence. So this is without using any pagan days, any Gregorian calendar, anything. That's just looking at Abib. So this day right here for us was the 17th. March 17th at night, right here. Night 17th, 18th daytime. First day. So let's look at the Gregorian calendar. It should line up. So let's take a look. Here's the Gregorian calendar for 2026. Remember, the year is always going to start on a Tuesday night. Just like trumpets, always going to start on a Tuesday night. Always. All right. So Tuesday night, the 17th, was Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. So this is the first day, right? So let's count to the 14th. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th day started Monday night. In between evenings, right here is where the Passover lamb was killed. Right there. So this is when Mashiach would have been taken according to their calendar, right? He's taken that Tuesday night. He was killed on that Tuesday night. He had to be buried here before that next day came, before the night of Tuesday night, which would start Wednesday. All right, so that will be the 14th, the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st. This Monday night just passed. That was the last night of unleavened bread. So that brings us into the morrow after the Shabbat, after unleavened bread. Here we are today, the Shabbat. Today is the Shabbat, April 11th. The morrow after that is your first fruit. So starting tonight, Sunday, starts Saturday night, we have first fruits. And when Mashiach would have been seen, right there. That next day, 8 days later from his resurrection. So there you have it, right there. It's broken right down in scriptures. We broke it down like Columbo. All the clues is put together. Everything is right there. We showed you the Dead Sea Scrolls. They understood. We showed you the Zadokians were the ones that kept the law. The Sanhedrin and the Pharisees weren't doing it. They had a whole different calendar. They were lunar worshiping, moon worshiping, doing all kind of stuff, building astral poles, which is the goddess of the moon, building horses to the sun, worshiping the solar, the sun god. They were doing all this wickedness, worshiping planets, all these type of things. These were the traditions of the forefathers. We received this Torah, this Bible at some point in our lives, and we decided to tear those idols down. So now that we know better, we do better. So again, today is your first fruits offering. If you have fruits to offer, you offer it. But remember, fruits of the Spirit. We offer the best of our talent to Yah. You confirm that. You go before the Father and you offer your sheaf of offering before Yah. So that's all we're going to do today. I didn't see a lot of questions in the class today. Let me look in the chat. I didn't see any questions in the chat. So again, we are Israelites Gathering. If you have any questions or comments, if we didn't close, you can reach out to us on our app, either on Android or Apple. It's entitled Israelites Gathering. You can email us also at info@israelitesgathering.com. If you don't have a copy of the calendar, you can go ahead on our website or which is israelitegathering.com, or on our application and download it for free. And if you have gained anything from our studies and would like to donate, you can donate to us. Our Cash App is $ATL. So $sword ATL. So that's all we're going to do today. Again, keep Brother Kased lifted up in prayers. Ain't nothing, it's just about nothing I know worse than a toothache. So I pray that he gets some relief and that he's able to resolve that problem. So Yah be with you all. Enjoy the Moedim. Enjoy the appointed time of first fruits, with Mashiach being our first fruits. And until then, also, we will be trying to have our Bible study again Tuesday. We're trying to resume that again every fourth day. We'll be picking up on the second half of the class, ethnology versus universal religion. So ethnology, religion versus universal religion, a great class by another one of our Moris from one of our family ministries, the Defenders of the Throne, with Brother Ott Scott. So Yah's will, we'll see you for Bible study. Until then, everybody enjoy your Shabbat. Shabbat.